We are
All
live.
right, there we go. Happy Saturday. Welcome to another fun-filled edition of the Fantasy Football Buzz. The Week 4 edition. We got the Commish with us, myself, 2020. I'm going to talk about a lot of fun things today. First, before we do that, how you doing today, Commish?
I'm doing fine. Cyclops is missing. I think we're going to put posters around the neighborhood to see where he's at, just in case, just to make sure he's okay and he's not hurting himself.
Actually, I talked to him. He might actually call in. I think he's handling a pickleball contest or some kind of tournament that his son is engaged in. So family first, right? But Commish and I are going to be able to carry the show today. Glad that you're joining us to get your advice to give you that win that you're looking for in Week 4. We know many of you are trying to get up in your league. It's a really important week. A lot of you are 1-2, a lot of you are 0-3. It's a big week to really start getting momentum as you're heading towards those middle weeks up until, of course, you start seeing those playoff weeks.
And some of us are 3-0.
And some of us are 3-0 and a lot of 2-1s. I got to stay upbeat about it. So obviously some really interesting news and notes to talk about, not just injuries. We're going to cover that. The Commission is going to give you the rundown on what to look for tomorrow. Obviously, we had some COVID news there. A team that was two teams that are going to be on bye. Commission is going to cover that. And then we're going to do our stardom sit-em. Everyone loves stardom sit-em. Covering the four major positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. But don't forget to call in. Call us with your lineup questions. Week 4, you're definitely starting to look at doing some trades to improve your team. You got the phone number 772-800-BUZZ.
That's right.
This is why I'm 2020. It's not just because of the year, because my vision is desperately wishing I was 2020. Call us in to talk to us. We'd love to hear your lineup questions. Love to hear your comments as well. 772-800-BUZZ. Get buzzed with the Fantasy Football Buzz. So Commish, let's jump right in. Let's start going into some news and notes around the league. And tell us what you got.
Well, first of all, shout out to my Gators. Go Gators. They play South Carolina today. So, okay, that's college football, so we're not going to talk about that, but I wanted to give the shout out. All right. So here's the thing. You mentioned the issue about COVID and what's going on in the NFL right now. And we know what happened with the Titans and the Steelers, with the Titans actually, and the Steelers. So that game has been postponed for a later time. But now 3 more members of the Titans organization have tested positive. That includes 2 staff members and another player. That brings the total amount to 16. So even though the NFL's already rescheduled the Titans-Steelers game, guys, next week's Titans-Bills game is also in jeopardy. So I know it was a surprise for a lot of you out there, and they had to adjust your rosters on the fly, and there were some issues. But now you know, and you're getting some notice that it's very possible that next week's game against the Bills could also be in jeopardy, which means if you have Josh Allen, if you have any John Brown, if you have
Stephon Diggs, Devin Singletary,
be ready on your rosters to have backups just in case that happens, because the NFL is not going to go forward unless you have several straight days of no positive tests. So keep an eye on that issue. Getting into individual players that actually are fantasy worthy or that people are concerned about, we're going to start with a guy who's sitting on my bench this week, and that's Julio Jones. Now, he's listed as limited, which means that there's a possibility that he will play. He should be a go, but the problem is, guys, he's a Monday night player. And when you have a Monday night player, you have to make your decisions on Sunday as to who you're going to start if you're going to make that decision. So even though all signs point to Julio Jones returning, I'm not necessarily recommending that you put him in your starting lineup, but keep in mind he has been limited. Somebody who has been limited in the past but is actually a full go is Miles Sanders, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. If you have Miles Sanders, you guys are good to go. They play the 49ers this week. You know, the Eagles are still dealing with a lot of injuries, but Sanders is going to get a full workload, both in the running game and the passing game. So if you have Sanders, you're going to see probably 20-plus touches this week. Chris Carson, Another guy who's sitting on my bench this week, he's officially been listed as questionable. Now, after the game last week when his knee got sprained by a Dallas Cowboy, everyone thought there was no way that he would play this week. But Coach Pete Carroll said earlier yesterday that Carson had an excellent week of practice and he appears likely to suit up. But curb your enthusiasm and your expectations, guys, because who knows if in this Pete Carroll offense, if Carson really is going to get that full workload. Now, if Carson doesn't play, or even if he shares the backfield, it's supposed to be with Carlos Hyde. And I know he was a big waiver wire pickup this week. The problem is that Carlos Hyde is also listed as questionable in the matchup this week against the Dolphins. So he's going to be Chris Carson's primary backup, or he could be a starter, or you could be looking at Homer, the former Miami Hurricanes running back, as the player there. It is a mess in the backfield in Seattle. So just keep that in mind. Keep an eye on the active and inactive list tomorrow when it comes out at 11. All right, in Washington, Terry McLaurin. Even though that team is a disaster, McLaurin has been the one bright spot, but he has not practiced for the entire week. If he does not play, Dontrell Inman, Antonio Gandy-Golden, those are your top receivers in Washington. It could get ugly against a Ravens defense without McLaurin. So again, keep an eye on McLaurin, keep an eye on the updates, injuries, news, and also whether or not he's going to be active for tomorrow. Another big star, guys, who was out last week is Devontae Adams. Supposedly, he had his second straight practice on yesterday, which means that his availability for Monday night is looking better and better. But like Julio, you have that same issue where you're looking at Monday night. So keep in mind, he is doing well. It looks like he's going to suit up. It looks like he's going to play. And if he does, of course, you're talking about an elite wide receiver 1 against a terrible Atlanta secondary. Cardinals star DeAndre Hopkins, he didn't practice for a third straight day on Friday. So he's now also missed the entire week of practice. And they play the Cardinals play the Panthers this week. The GM of the Cardinals said earlier that Hopkins is going to be a game time decision along with his backup, or I should say the number 2 receiver, which is Christian Kirk, which means look for Larry Fitz, look for Andy Isabella. If Hopkins is deemed inactive, if Christian Kirk is deemed inactive, it's going to be a tough offense for the Cardinals this week. A guy we haven't talked about, a guy who's been sitting on the bench and probably is available in everybody's league, is Deebo Samuel with the 49ers. They play the Eagles this week. Now, Deebo Samuel returned from injured reserve on Wednesday, and he is most likely going to play this week. So, they've got a terrible, banged-up wide receiver core, and bringing in Deebo Samuel, somebody who pulled in 57 receptions last year for over 800 yards and 5 touchdowns, is going to get the start if he's available and you are desperate. If you have a Titan or you have a Steeler and you need somebody, Deebo Samuel might be a good option. Now, quickly, I'll make this quick. These are guys that have been ruled out. If you have them, make sure they are not on your starting lineup. Cam Akers, so look for Henderson to continue to carry the load. Jimmy Garoppolo, again, ruled out. Look for Nick Mullins to continue looking good for the 49ers. Speaking of the 49ers, Raheem Mostert also ruled out. So once again, it'll be Jerick McKinnon and Jeff Wilson sharing the backfield. Deshaun Jackson declared out, which means Greg Ward and John Hightower are going to be expected to be the starting receivers for the Eagles. Jared Cook, the tight end for the Saints, also out. Look for Josh Hill and Adam Troutman to lead the Saints. Michael Thomas, as we all know, he's still ruled out. There was hope that he would come back this week. It is not happening. Sorry, people who own Michael Thomas, but he is out. Just a few more quick things. Dolphins cornerback Byron Jones, he's listed as doubtful. Most likely he will not play against the Seahawks. Why does that matter other than the fact that we're Dolphin fans? It matters because if you have DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, good luck, guys. This is your week. I don't know which of those two that X will be covering, but without Byron Jones, it's going to be a tough week for the Dolphins secondary. Just moving forward and looking ahead at week 5, Adam Gase said yesterday that Sam Darnold could miss time with that shoulder sprain. However, if any of you had Sam Darnold in your lineup, you deserve to lose anyway. Free agent Lamar Miller, he's expected to sign with the Chicago Bears to be on their practice squad. No fantasy impact at this time. And then finally, Broncos quarterback Drew Lock. There was a lot of hope that this guy would be making that next step up this coming season, and unfortunately he got hurt. However, he's 50-50 to play Sunday against the Patriots. If he does not play this week, look for Brett Rippon to continue to start. Next week, look for Brett Rippon to start. If not, it'll be Drew Lock. Hopefully for week 6, Drew Lock will come back. That's the news and notes. If you have any questions, go ahead and give us a call or comment.
Great job as always, Commish. And one note with Davante Adams, and I'm actually Davante Adams' owner, so I've been looking into this very specifically. Allen Lazard is also in danger of not playing. So if some reason MVS is out there, if Marquez Valdez-Scantling is out there, and you're going to roll the dice on trying to play Davante Adams Monday night, which again, it's looking very positive that he will get MVS on your bench, because without Adams or Lazard, that he is very, very high wide receiver 2, I think wide receiver 2 potential as the number 1 receiver in that. Even if with Adams playing, I like MVS this week.
So Lazard will be out. I'm sorry I didn't mention that. So Lazard has surgery, had core surgery. He's going to be out at least a month. Adams most likely is going to play, but yes, I think Valdez-Scantling is looking like your number 2 with the Packers, and he's definitely somebody that should be picked up.
Excellent. Commish, thanks so much. Doing a great job taking us around the league. News and notes, injury updates. It is never a dull moment. Every day there's more drama with what's going on. I still think the league is doing a really good job holding up with what they had to contend with this virus. So let's go into one of the fun segments that we like to do on Saturday, now having a lot more information with what's been going around the league. We're going to do our very favorite Stardom Situm, and we're going to start off with quarterbacks. So
we were going to talk about ice cream again.
We are going to. Well, I thought Rocky Road was it. Didn't Rocky Road
Rocky
win?
Road did win. You're right.
Yes.
Rocky Road did. You know what I had this morning? I had grits this morning. I like grits. I'm a Southern guy, but not like a MAGA Southern guy. But I'm a Southern guy.
Were they instant grits?
And I like the grits. Yeah, they were the instant grits. But you know what I did is I put the everything bagel spice in the grits, and it tasted like an everything bagel grit. It was actually very tasty. So I just thought I'd share that with everybody.
The Trader Joe's everything bagel?
You know, it was actually Lowe's food from North Carolina. I bought a bunch of them and I brought them home because it's so good. But everyone told me that the Trader Joe's everything bagel spice is actually very good, and I have not tried that yet, but I am going to.
It is actually pretty epic. We have a little comment from the Cyclop. He's still promoting his mint chocolate chip. That chip has sailed. I don't even think that was in the top 5.
Did you say that chip has failed?
Sorry, that's a fail. It's not going to go anywhere. You could try, try as you like. I think we leveled out at Rocky Road / Heavenly Hash. The precursor to Rocky Road is Heavenly Hash. But you keep trying. You keep trying, Cyclop. Yeah. Although, something, let's have a little fun with that today, though. So last week we were talking about what our favorite ice cream is. I want to hear what your favorite 80s movie is. And it could be of any genre. It could be a John Hughes comedy. It could be horror, whatever it is. I want to hear about your favorite 80s movie before we get into the Stardom Situm. Actually, Commish, lay it on me. What is your favorite 80s movie?
Well, here's the thing. Favorite movies to me are ones that if you're flipping through and it comes on, you have to watch, no matter how many times you've seen it over and over and over again. And I have 2 that are tied. And I know that's a cop-out to give you 2, but I just cannot separate these 2. But it's between Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And those are the 2, to me, that are quintessential 80s movies that can never be replicated, duplicated, made again. And they will go down in history. They already have gone down in history of classics.
I can't believe you stole mine. Mine is without a doubt, hands down, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Absolutely. And you know something? There's a really interesting trivia question out of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's one of the only 80s movies of that genre that had 3 Oscar winners in that movie. Can you name the 3 Oscar winners in Fast Times at Ridgemont High? We'll throw out that fun trivia question for you guys. Fantastic choices. You can't go along with Ferris Bueller and Fast Times, possibly one of the best movies ever made for me.
I think I have it, but I'll let people call in or comment. But
yeah, well, we got Mint Chocolate Chip on the sidelines commenting. So let's see what you got. Cam Newton out for positive test? Can we verify that?
I will verify that. Thank you, Josh, for letting us know.
I mean, that had to be just in, because we're always up to date on that. Thank you for that excellent piece of advice. So let's get that verified, because that's going to be significant. And that might impact a lot of the Buccaneers in that game entirely. So that's very interesting.
Yes. Cam Newton, according to Adam Schefter, has tested positive. He is out for Sunday's game versus Kansas City.
Wow.
That was breaking news 11 minutes ago, and it has been confirmed by Ian Rappaport. So that's, I guess, Jason Stidham is going to be the quarterback for the Patriots this week.
Well, yeah, that's kind of, I said Buccaneers, that's nuts. That's going to impact a lot of fantasy players, specifically Julian Edelman, Rex Burkhead, that whole deal. But, they like Stidham. They really were considering rolling with him when Brady left. Newton came in, last minute as the signing. So we're going to see what this kid's got in his arsenal. Look what Brett Rypien did on Thursday night. He actually had a pretty decent showing, put up some nice fantasy numbers. Same thing with guys like Nick Mullins as well. So that should be very interesting. So stay tuned for more on that. If there's any more issues or any more outbreaks with members of the New England Patriots.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that they are all together. They go maskless together in practices and walkthroughs and meetings, and it's very possible that now that might be an issue.
And now you're talking about something substantial because they're playing Kansas City, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so you're talking about an enormous amount of fantasy capital that if this game has to be suspended, that people are going to be struggling last minute to replace some serious fantasy players. So that is something obviously to keep very, very closely monitored. Josh, thanks for that recent post and heads up.
I noticed that there's another comment. Someone is asking whether or not we have to pick one between Traquan Smith, T.Y. Hilton, or Brandon Cooks in half-point PPR. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Oh, there it is. People with Traquan Smith, T.Y. Hilton, or Brandon Cooks in a half-point PPR. That's interesting. With Michael Thomas probably not playing, Traquan Smith is an interesting
Not
prospect.
Just Thomas, but Cook also.
Cook as well, exactly. And it's funny with Brandon Cooks. I was expecting so much more for him this year. I think this is a get-right game for Deshaun Watson. And it looked like Breeze was favoring Emmanuel Sanders in their last game. Believe it or not, the numbers aren't showing it, but I think this is a get-right game for Deshaun Watson, and I'm actually going to go with Brandon Cooks here.
I actually just dropped Brandon Cook. I have A.J. Brown on injured reserve, and in order to make a move, I had to take A.J. Brown off the injured reserve, and I had to drop somebody to do that, and I actually dropped Brandon Cooks.
Interesting.
So, he has not. I like the idea of Traquan Smith just because of the volume. So for half-point PPR, I go with Traquan Smith. I know we're not really answering your question because we each had one separate, but I honestly think that between T.Y., Cooks, and Smith, you're going to get all about the same amount of points anyway. I don't think you're going to have more of a variation of more than 2 to 3 points on either of these guys.
So there you have it, a very defined answer from the Fantasy Football Buzz podcast. Go with that one. And actually, that's going to play really well into our stardom sit-em. And I'm going to start with quarterbacks. And ironically, my first stardom this week is Deshaun Watson. People are down on him. They're saying, is this not the same Deshaun? Of course, he lost his big target, number 10, DeAndre Hopkins, who's faring exceptionally well in Arizona, though he's a little banged up. But people aren't look at who Deshaun Watson had to start his season against. Baltimore and Pittsburgh, two of arguably the best defenses in the league, and Pittsburgh, arguably the best pass defense in the league. This, I'm telling you, is a get-right game for Deshaun. They're going up against a very, very exploitable Minnesota secondary. I think that he's going to get a lot of play in this game. I think you're going to see 300 yards and possibly 2 or 3 touchdowns. He's got a lot to prove. He wants to show it wasn't DeAndre Hopkins that made him. I love Deshaun this week. Don't give up on him. You drafted him for a reason. And again, against Minnesota, it's a very exploitable defense. Moving on to my second start of the week. This is a guy that is always underrated, always off the radar, and just consistently puts up, for the most part, very good numbers. And I love his matchup that week, and that's Ryan Fitzmagic. He has had back-to-back 28-point weeks. You've got Seattle giving up some massive air yards, and they played some pretty good quarterbacks, but Fitzpatrick is really in sync in this offense right now. He's got a lot of weapons at his expense with Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki. He's throwing the ball out of the backfield very nicely to Gaskin, as well as to Matt Breida. And Seattle is just going to come out firing on all cylinders with Byron Jones down. This is going to be an all-out shootout, and I see Fitzpatrick putting up possibly in the name of 350 plus yards and 3 scores.
I believe his name is Fitzmagic. Listen, before we move forward, the Cyclops has actually called in. Are you there, Cyclops?
I am here.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I found it important enough to be part of our show today.
Yeah. I'm in an area. I have very little cell service. I actually had to walk around and find service, and I'm standing in one spot so I could call in.
He has a very little what? What was, say it again?
I think the term is schmeckle.
Is that verified?
Unfortunately, yes.
I don't know where to go with that.
So I know, Brad, you were asking whether or not the game is going to be postponed, and as of right now, there is no information about that. And I think it's going to come down to whether or not other Patriots test positive. If they do, I can't see Kansas City wanting to play against them.
Right.
So here's my thought. Okay, we already have this other game postponed. More players are now testing positive on the Titans. They've had 3 more test positive. Now, not only with football, but now the president has it, and they're seeing from all these people being around each other, minute by minute, it seems that all these other people are testing positive, right? So now all of a sudden Cam Newton tests positive. So how do they play this game now? Because they just seem they know it's going to have more positives.
Well, I think they're going to have to test. So if all the players and coaches and staff and assistants that are involved in this game can get tested immediately and all come back, negative, then they'll be able to play the game because the test will tell you that.
But keep in mind, just because you test negative today doesn't mean it's not incubating. That's why people quarantine. Right. That's why they're having all these things. That's why one person might test negative, today. But tonight they take another test.
No, if you're not showing symptoms, that doesn't mean it. If you're positive, you're positive. If you're negative, you're negative. If you're positive,
that's not true. That's not true. You could test negative today and be positive tomorrow for something that you caught 3 days ago.
I didn't understand that. That's interesting. I didn't understand that way actually.
I wouldn't be surprised because of this if the game is called off between Kansas City.
You're not talking about the long snapper who, is not around a lot of the others. Him in the huddle every single play, every single time.
It affects a lot. Well, it's definitely something. It's definitely something to closely monitor. And you're right, considering what just happened with Tennessee, and thankfully, it only affected Tennessee. You could look at this and say, well, how did this affect the team they played? And Minnesota came away, thankfully, unscathed. And that could be a part of the decision. But again, they might err on the side of caution.
Yeah, but listen, here's an example. Falcons player, AJ Terrell, he tested positive last week and he didn't play. All the other tests came back fine on the team. They played the Bears on Sunday. No Falcons or Bears have tested positive since then. So yes, I understand there's a difference between a cornerback and a quarterback as far as being able to spread, but it is possible that nobody else has it. But most likely somebody else is going to come up with it, and hopefully not Brian Hoyer or Jarrett Stidham,
Right.
because then they're in big trouble.
I think Julian Edelman is like the fourth possible quarterback on that team, right?
That would be fun.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Especially if you have him as a wide receiver. That would be really interesting. I could start him up and let him get into 300 yards passing. That'd be kind of fun. Yeah.
I'm really just my thought with that now, obviously just breaking, and the game is tomorrow, and this whole thing with the president and all the people around him, starting to pop up positive. If they're going to take they're going to be even more cautious because of that and postpone this game. So that's my thought. We'll see. It's going to be a scramble if they do for people to pick up waivers and all of these things going into tonight and tomorrow. So it'll be interesting.
Well, I think what's going to be interesting now that this is starting to happen, if they're going to be able to start to or try to set up some kind of a precedent with a certain amount of people that have it by a certain time on a team, if that game is going to be canceled, and there's some kind of regularity, something that you can be counted on, as this is going to obviously occur more throughout the season. And that's
Adam Schefter has stated that the Patriots have been doing mass testing and retesting, and so far there's no spread. Of course, that could happen today, tomorrow, the next day, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. We have one of our comments, callers trying to call in and get through. The reason why you were unable to, I believe, is because we have a caller on the line now. So just sit tight. And as we finish with this caller, Kenneth, we'll get you on as well.
I don't know if we're going to finish with this caller. I think, Brad, are you going to be staying on for the rest of the show?
Oh, that's right. It is Brad.
I'll stay on for a few minutes. I'll stay on for 5-10 minutes, and then I'll
yeah, so sit tight, Kenneth, for about another 10 minutes. This is one of our hosts, the Cyclops, calling in, and we'll be able to take your call in about 10 minutes.
Don't know if I have enough signal here to do that.
Okay.
Right. All right. Very good. All right. Good stuff. Hey, listen.
Let Kenneth call, and if I can't, I'll call back in a few minutes.
Okay. Go work on that small schmeckle. Okay. Excellent. All right. So we're gonna. Okay. So Cyclops just dropped off. Kenneth, if you'd like to try to call in, go ahead and try that now, and we'll see if you can get through. While you're doing that, though, we're going to continue on with our Stardom Sit-'em segment. We started off with Deshaun Watson as one of my first quarterback starts. And, of course, remember, this is obvious. You're going to start your Patrick Mahomes. You're going to start your Lamar Jacksons, your Russell Wilsons. Those are obvious. These are people that you're considering in lieu of possible other people in the same tier. Another interesting start that I had that we were talking about was I said Ryan Fitzpatrick, otherwise Mr. Fitzmagic. He's got a fantastic matchup. We were finishing that out against Seattle. Lots of weapons there. He's been looking good the last couple of weeks, putting up yards and scores. And finally, my last start of the week is going to be Joe Burrow, quarterback for Cincinnati. What I love about him this week, he's got a fantastic matchup against Jacksonville. He's had back-to-back 24-point weeks. He's got lots of targets and tools to work with. He can play with Tyler Boyd, T. Higgs. AJ Green is still a part of it, but not looking like the same AJ Green. Got Joe Mixon coming out of the backfield, and I love the fact that Jacksonville is just a very exploitable defense. And staying on quarterbacks, my one sit this week is going to be actually two sits this week are Derek Carr and Tom Brady. I don't like Derek Carr. He's got too many of his important players down with both Ruggs and Brian Edwards. Renfro is going to be the only receiver he can really throw out to, as well as Darren Waller. And Tom Brady versus the Chargers. The Chargers have a very good pass defense. They were really able to hold Pat Mahomes in check for quite a while. And I just don't like the fact that he's not going to have Chris Godwin at his ready. Without Godwin week one, he did not look very good as well. So those are my quarterback stardoms and the one sit-em. We're going to move over to the commish, who's going to walk you through the wide receivers stardom and sit-em for this week.
So here's my wide receiver stardom of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the one and only former Odell Beckham Jr. He's probably been disappointing a lot of you. And he's really yet to pop off. He was actually a great defensive back last week. But That should change against the Dallas secondary, allowing the 5th most passing yards in the league right now. They've allowed 4. Hold on one second. Kenneth. The Cowboys have allowed 4 100-yard receivers, including 7 total touchdowns against receivers. So, Odell Beckham Jr., start of the week. If you have him, start him. Kenneth, how are you today?
Pretty good. I don't know if you mentioned this, but I have a little bit of info regarding that game that got postponed.
Oh,
I don't know if you mentioned this.
The Titans and Steelers?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
From what I've been told, that game has been moved to the Sunday before Halloween.
Okay.
I believe that's October the 25th, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah, they're probably just exchanging out their bye weeks for this week. So thank you.
They're moving the Steelers-Ravens game. That game has been moved to November the 1st.
Okay.
I
Great.
just wanted to give everyone a heads up about that. I didn't know if you had mentioned that earlier.
No, we appreciate it, Kenneth. No, we didn't mention the actual dates. We talked about the game, but we didn't mention the dates. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. Yep.
No problem. Hey, Kenneth, before you hang up, what is your record in your fantasy league right now?
I'm in a 12-team PPR. I am 2-1.
All right, not bad.
Very nice.
Probably because you're listening to the show.
That's exactly right. He's an avid caller, avid listener. And before you go, Kenneth, what's your favorite 80s movie?
Right now.
And what's your favorite 80s,
hey, Kenneth,
80s
what's
movie?
your favorite 80s movie?
Favorite 80s movie? I can't really think of one right off the top of my head.
No problem. All right, man. Well, give us a call next week at our show on Tuesday night.
Appreciate you calling in. So we have a
Thank you.
all right. So we have a visitor this Saturday. Our
Breakfast
third
with
part of
Buds.
the three-legged stool. We got we got mint chocolate chip dialing in to come in to pick us up in the rear.
That's right.
Before you start, you got to give us your favorite 80s movie. And don't tell me mint chocolate chip.
MCC. Yeah, I heard you guys bring that up, and I hate to be redundant, but I mean the Phoebe Cates, scene. How do you get over that?
You don't.
So,
all right, hands up, everybody.
Yeah, I need about 3 minutes. I'll be back.
So,
Why do you think I'm blind?
I lost so much fluid to that movie. I had to get hooked up to an IV.
This show's taking a turn for the worse right here. This is it. This is where we go down.
So you're picking Fast Times, Brad?
I got to go with Fast Times.
Yeah, it's
it's still relevant, and it's just that's it.
Well, nobody's answering the question, so I'm going to throw in one of them, and I think I know all three, but I'm going to go ahead and say Sean Penn is obviously the easy of the three.
That's correct.
But I think I know the other two, but if you want me to keep waiting, I'll keep waiting. We can go back to our stardom.
What was the question about
the
Sean Penn?
3 Oscar Award winners that came out of Fast Times at Ridgemont High? And I'll tell you what, Commish, what would really impress me is if you can tell me for what role.
Did Sean Penn get it for I Am Sam?
Okay.
I think he won the Oscar.
I thought it was for MLK, but I don't know. But it could have been I Am Sam.
I don't know. Okay.
I mean,
maybe both.
So is Forrest Whitaker one?
No.
Yeah, I think Forrest Whitaker's not one. I thought he would have been one of them.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. It is Forrest Whitaker. I apologize.
Okay, so I talked about Odell Beckham Jr., and on the other side of the ball is Jarvis Landry. And when I talked about the Cowboys having allowed 4 100-yard receivers and 7 total touchdowns, most of that damage has been done by slot receivers, as we saw what Tyler Lockett did in week 3. So even though the Browns have really turned into this run-first offense, I really think Kevin Stefanski is going to do plenty of these play-action shots to Landry and Odell. If you have either one of these guys or both, start them this week. You talked about Fitzmagic, right? Well, that translates to Devontae Parker. And no defense, as you said, has surrendered more points to opposing wide receivers than the Seahawks, which includes 6 100-yard receivers over the past 3 weeks.
That's amazing.
And Parker, he's made almost 12 fantasy points in each of the past 2 weeks. So, Fitzmagic is your start. Devontae Parker is my start here on the wide receivers. And finally, without going into too much detail, even though I agree with you, Keith, that Brady is not necessarily a start this week, with Godwin out, it's hard not to go with Mike Evans. He has been connecting with Mike Evans. He's been getting better and better each week.
True.
Last week, 7 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. So last week, he threw two touchdowns to Evans, and even though he didn't have a lot of yards, he still got you 14 points. So I think Mike Evans. So just quickly summarize: Beckham, Landry, Parker, Evans.
Love it. Excellent. Any comments on that, Cyclop, as you're popping in before we move on to running backs?
No, that's strong, and I think all of those players, especially Parker, should be relevant this week. Evans, of course, because of the injuries there. I question, just because of that Swiss cheese defense in Seattle, maybe this is the week for Preston Williams as well to have a good week.
I mean, if they're going to put up 350,
Right.
400 yards,
Yeah.
which is what they're going to need to do to stay with it, they're going to have to go other places other than Devontae Parker.
Yeah.
So that is a solid choice.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been waiting for Preston Williams to kind of, jump back up and get back to where he was at the beginning of last year before his injury. And this could be that week.
Yep, I happen to agree with you. All right, so we're going to keep moving on with our stardom sit-ins. We're going to move on to running backs. And my start of the week is Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers is not going to be playing. Malcolm Brown will, but he's clearly, with what we're seeing, he's taken a backseat to Darrell Henderson, who has in the last couple weeks been absolutely phenomenal. And he's playing the Giants, who have allowed 4 running backs to either score or run for at least 100 yards in 3 games. And he's been lighting it up over the last 2 weeks, Darrell Henderson. So I love it, love the matchup, and I love what he's doing. I also have Mike Davis against the Cardinals. What I love about this more than anything is he has filled in pretty admirably in that, running back out of the backfield that's grabbing a lot of balls from Teddy Bridgewater. That came out wonderful. And it's going to be a really good, even without DeAndre Hopkins possibly in the game, with Kyler Murray and that high-powered offense. I see this as a game script where they are going to be playing a lot of catch-ups. He's had 16 catches for 119 yards on 17 targets in his last 2 games.
Quarters. 5 quarters.
Exactly. And again, those are 2 games where he started one in full, but then he came in when Christian McCaffrey got hurt late in that game. So he's a really nice play this week. And then you have Devin Singletary. Zach Moss is coming back. Singletary had the reins all to himself last week. But last week he had 17 touches, put up 121 yards. And the Raiders right now are giving up the most points to running backs in the league. So I think Singletary, even with Moss coming back, looks like a really good start against that porous Las Vegas Raiders run defense. And then this guy is just one of my favorites. He's one of those just fun stories in football this year, and that's James Robinson. This is a guy that got drafted very late in drafts. A lot of it was waiver wire pickups, and he has just been absolutely a stud for Jacksonville. I love his matchup going against the Bagels, which have a very run-weak defense. And what's great about Robinson, the biggest fear on him was, as the Jaguars are going to have to come from behind, you thought you were going to see Chris Thompson coming in to do a lot of that passing work those passing work downs. Robinson has been getting a lot of grabs as well. Last week against the Fins in catch-up mode, he had 6 grabs for 83 yards and rounded out 130 yards from scrimmage with a touchdown. So I love Robinson this week. It's a great matchup. And he's been getting the yards. over his last 2 games, 32 carries. Excuse me, this is Darrell Henderson's numbers, 32 carries for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns over his last 2 games. So that's rounding out our running back starts of the week. My sit's going to be Antonio Gibson. Got a tough matchup against Baltimore. I do like him as a running back. I think with McLaurin down, they can focus in and really stop the run, stack the box against that Washington offense. So I would be sitting Antonio Gibson this week. We're going to move over to the commish, who's going to finish us up on our stardom segment. Hello, stardom sit-em segment. Hello, and you're going to take us on tight ends. But while we're doing that, we have a question from Sarah Riley. If Chris Carson doesn't play, would you play Landry, Mark Ingram, John Brown, or Dobbins? That's a really good question. And, based on that, I love Ingram and I love Dobbins both as running backs. From an NFL purpose, they have a very, very tasty matchup this week against Washington. But I happen to agree with the commish that I think Baker Mayfield is going to light it up this week, and I probably would just go with the sure-handed Landry to get 8, 9, 10 grabs this week. I don't know. What do you think, commish?
I think that there's always that possibility of a touchdown from Dobbins or Ingram, but that's just a hope and a prayer. So I agree. I think Landry right now, based on the matchup, is your best opportunity in that flex position, especially with the half-point PPR. Brown is going to be playing. He was a little banged up, but we don't know what that's going to look like. So I think Landry is your safe pick for this week. We appreciate the question, Sarah. Okay, so moving on, I didn't mention my sits on wide receivers when I did. I thought we were going to go back and do sit 'em later. So let me just conclude the sit 'em with the wide receivers. I won't go into a lot of detail, but T.Y. Hilton, guys, against Chicago, he's going to be the one that's probably going to be matched up with Kyle Fuller, who's only allowed 10 catches on 22 targets. So if you have T.Y. Hilton and you have a better choice like Landry, go ahead and bench T.Y. Hilton this week. A guy who's been getting a lot of notoriety and justifiably so, especially in the game Thursday night, is Robbie Anderson. He's right now the NFL's 6th leading receiver. So everyone picked him up. They're high on him. But you know what, guys? Arizona allowed the fewest points to wide receivers so far this year in the league. No team's second leading receiver has scored more than 8.3 points against the Cardinals this year. That's
a great stat.
Yeah. So right now, guys, if you have Robbie Anderson, if you have a better option, go ahead and start them. Even DJ Moore wasn't productive. So, guys, if you have Robbie Anderson, you have a better choice, go ahead and bench Robbie Anderson. Going into the stardoms for tight ends, the team that this tight end, my start of the week, the team that this guy plays against has been the most generous defense in terms of allowing fantasy points to tight ends. They've allowed tight ends to record a touchdown in each of the past 3 games, and they've already given up 20 receptions to that position. Where this player that I'm going to mention, the start of the week, he comes into week 4 as a top 10 tight end. He surpassed over 50 yards in each of those games and nabbed at least 4 catches in each game. And you know what, guys? He's available in many leagues, and that's TJ Hawkinson. People forget about this guy. TJ Hawkinson, the tight end for the Detroit Lions, plays against the New Orleans Saints, who's got a terrible tight end defense. I actually dropped Hayden Hurst in one of my leagues and picked up Hawkinson for this reason. Hawkinson is the real deal, guys. Go ahead and pick him up. If you have him, start him. Somebody who is also available, most likely in 100% of your leagues that nobody's talking about, is Robert Tonyan. Now, he's quickly working his way up in the ranks for tight ends. He's played 22 more snaps than the next closest Packers tight end this season. I know that Packers tight ends really don't get a lot of notice, a lot of news, a lot of information about them. But this guy's averaged over 13 points over the past 2 weeks, and he's become Rodgers' favorite red zone target. Even though Devontae Adams is going to play, without Lazard there and with Devontae not necessarily being 100%, I like the idea of Robert Tonyan. He's, to me, is a nice streamer. If you can pick him up, go ahead and grab him. On the sit side, I only have one here, and that's somebody like Robbie Anderson, where people were very excited about. They went out, they picked him up in free agency this past week because of the week he had in week 3, and that is Jimmy Graham. But guys, he's going to come back crashing to earth. You know, the reason he did so well last week is that the Bears fell behind early, and they were only passing last week, and they were playing against who? The Atlanta Falcons. So Graham was asked to run 42 routes, and in that he had an impressive 6 catches for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. Don't expect that same game plan and that same play calling this week against the Colts, whose defense has actually been really stingy against tight ends. They've only allowed 6 catches and 32 yards and 0 touchdowns to tight ends. So if you have Jimmy Graham, again, curb your enthusiasm, put him on your bench, start somebody else.
Can I jump in with one more start? And it's on the same team that you were just talking about. And I know that Indy has a tough defense, but with Tariq Cohen out now, David Montgomery is going to be the guy. He's not going to have Tariq Cohen coming in and taking a lot of those pass downs, and then staying in the game, whatever it may be. You're going to see, I think, Montgomery in for probably close to 80% of the snaps now. So he should be moving into your lineups where he was doing okay before, but now, that role should jump for him quite a bit.
Yeah, very interesting. They're actually going to throw Cordarrelle Patterson into that Tariq Cohen role, and I know that
he's terrible.
He is terrible, except on kickoff returns. I like him in kickoff returns.
Yeah. And Lamar
Miller was just signed. That's correct. To the practice squad, and he's going to start seeing some interesting play.
Not this week. I don't think he's going to play this week, though. But you're not picking him up either way.
Exactly. He doesn't excite me. He's like a Devontae Freeman, just absolutely does nothing for me. So great job on the stardom sit-em, guys. I think you guys that have been listening in have gotten some really good information on who to look at.
We do have breaking news from Jason Canfora. The Pats players were told this is a league issue, not a team issue, and that everyone is told to stay home and wait by the phone for further word. Players were told they could potentially leave for Kansas City today, Sunday, Monday, or perhaps later. Wow. Newton was not symptomatic other than a few coughs. So just, keep an eye out on that game between the Patriots and the Chiefs. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I got to put my mask on, guys.
I was just going to say
that was my Derek Zoolander cough.
Oh, right.
I get the black lung. That's awesome. All right, great. We'll get another great show again. We hope we're leading you all down the road to victories this year, and we certainly love your questions. We love your calling in. Don't forget to call in each week 72772-800 the buzz. We'll be back next Tuesday night talking about whatever happened on Monday night. A great Monday night game. Should be very fantasy heavy. Hopefully Devontae Adams will play for those of you that have him. And looking forward to a fun-filled weekend. Hopefully there'll be no more positive tests and things can just move smoothly along in our beloved NFL. So, guys, before we kick off and enjoy the rest of our Saturdays, anything you want to finish with?
Yeah, I would think that Brad had said Forrest Whitaker. I know that he was at that, what was it called, Last King of Scotland, where he played Idi Amin. He was incredible. I think he won the Oscar for that.
Yeah.
And then the final one is one that people don't know about. Is probably Nicolas Cage for Leaving Las Vegas. He was a bit player in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Jennifer Jason Leigh, I think she didn't win the Oscar. She was nominated for Hateful Eight, but she didn't win the Oscar for that. So those are my three. On Penn,
very nicely done.
And Nicolas Cage.
And when I first saw that question, I thought it was going to be Eric Stoltz for his role in Mask. but he
was he nominated? I don't even know.
He was nominated, but did not win.
Okay.
It did win an Oscar for best makeup, obviously, but not win for the role. So great way to end the show on some fun-filled facts. Fun fact for you. All right, so guys, great show. Way to close us out. Cyclops, go enjoy your mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Always.
I'm gonna go watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and then maybe the Warriors to have my fun 80s filled weekend.
Warriors.
Come out to play. And good luck in your games this week, and we'll see you on Tuesday night.
All right, take care.
All right, guys, be good.